All right, so there are a lot of question marks for the Indiana Pacers this coming season. Obviously, their roster took a massive hit. For one, losing Myles Turner in the offseason and him going over to the Milwaukee Bucks, and also Tyrese Haliburton with his massive Achilles injury that he suffered in Game 7 of the finals, possibly won't be getting him for the entirety of next season. And I started thinking to myself, have we seen a finals team have a roster dismantled quite like this in recent memory, right? And by recent, I'm talking about maybe the last 15 to 20 years. There are some teams out there that have had that sort of situation. You look at the Heat back in 2014, they made the finals, lost to the Spurs, and they lost LeBron James that offseason. When you lose LeBron, that is a massive blow to your roster. We can also think about the Raptors in 2019. They won a championship, and that offseason, Kawhi Leonard goes out and joins the LA Clippers. Then you can also think about the 1998 Bulls, so going all the way back to the 90s, won their sixth championship, and the front office just dismantles absolutely everything. So it's almost the same deal here with the Pacers. Again, making this finals appearance, getting really deep in the NBA finals, possibly winning it if Haliburton doesn't get hurt. We saw the start he was off to in that Game 7, and now their roster is completely dismantled. Obviously, there are still some good players here, but again, just not what they had last season. And so now the question is, how good can they really be? How big will the fall off be, if there is going to be a fall off? And I think most of us can bet that there will be a fall off from last season into this one. And who's going to step up to try to sustain their success, or at least replicate it to some extent? The biggest thing for the Pacers is sustaining consistent perimeter shot creation and just efficiency on the offensive end. With Nembhard, what we've seen primarily through his career is him operating off the ball, and he's done very well in those sort of situations, especially over the last couple of years, operating as like a secondary shot creator or a secondary playmaker off of Tyrese Haliburton. He has a very versatile scoring skill set, can get to the basket, and is one of the best finishers near the rim. Also really solid in the mid-range area. Not exactly a three-level scorer, hasn't really mastered three-point efficiency just yet, but does have a pretty deep scoring bag. What we saw from him also in the finals is his ability to act as a primary shot creator. There were a lot of possessions where Haliburton was put off the ball and Nembhard was acting as a primary creator and had a lot of success in that particular area. So operating as a primary ball handler is not something that's foreign to Andrew Nembhard, and quite frankly, that's something that he was able to do at a very high level on the collegiate level, even getting Gonzaga to the NCAA championship back a few years ago where they lost to North Carolina, but at that time, he was just one of the better offensive orchestrators in college basketball. So again, acting as a primary shot creator and a primary orchestrator on the offensive end, that's not a foreign concept to Andrew Nembhard. But with this, there are three massive questions that I have for Nembhard in what could be an elevated role next season. For one, can he help to maintain Indiana's quick pace? That was like their biggest attribute last season, was their ability to get end to end off of makes or misses. Haliburton is probably the best player, or at least the best point guard, at doing just that, being able to push the ball up court, quickening the pace, those sorts of things. Is that something that you can be able to sustain with Andrew Nembhard at the helm as the primary offensive orchestrator and playmaker? Also, is Nembhard ready to orchestrate an NBA offense at a really, really high volume? Again, he did it in Gonzaga, but doesn't have a lot of experience doing that as a full-time starter and go-to playmaker here in the NBA. Good thing is, though, even when he was playing off of Tyrese Haliburton, averaged 5 assists per game. So he knows how to play make. He knows how to set guys up. But again, can he do this at a really high volume here as a full-time starter and point guard number one on this Indiana Pacers squad? My final question is this. Can Andrew Nembhard sustain his amazing on-ball point of attack defense with a higher offensive usage? That is something that we've come to learn as NBA fans over the last couple of seasons. It is very tough for high usage offensive players to be these amazing point of attack defenders for an entire 48-minute game. We saw that with Anthony Edwards a few seasons back. We've seen that a ton throughout the course of recent NBA history. So can Andrew Nembhard continue to sustain his elite level on-ball defense as he was Indiana's best on-ball defender last season while having a high usage on the offensive end? And if he can't, who's going to step up as this elite level point of attack defensive player for this team? It's as simple as that. He was so good for Indiana when it came to that over the last couple of years. That may be one thing he has to sacrifice with a higher offensive load. So what perimeter players are going to step up on the defensive end to try to at least bring that back this season a bit for this Pacers group? So we'll see what happens. Again, a lot of questions to be asked for this Pacers team, but still, I'm not counting out the idea of them getting back to the playoffs. But again, all of those things depend on what Andrew Nembhard is able to do on the offensive end. Can he sustain the pace? Can he sustain the playmaking? And can they find answers on the defensive end with a little bit of a smaller role for Nembhard on the defensive end as a point of attack, one-on-one defender? So we'll see, and hopefully this team can get back to a point where they are contending again. I really hope that they didn't reach their peak of the Haliburton era with last year's finals appearance. So we'll see what ends up happening, but hopefully Indiana can sustain some level of success and keep themselves in a comfortable enough position until Haliburton is able to come back. And who knows, maybe Nembhard uses this season, ups his value, and emerges as a potential all-star level player.